Welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers, hosted by Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. Hey everybody, this is the Squirrel Podcast, and I'm Jody.
I'm Candace.
And today we are talking about 6 ways to make your luck as a writer.
Why didn't you do 7? 7's a lucky number.
Because you would have had to have done more than...
You would have had to done...
even.
You would have had to done one more.
It wouldn't have been fair between us. We will do a bonus.
7 ways, everyone.
We will find one as we record this that we don't mention.
Sorry. What's the title again? 7 ways to make your own luck as a writer.
Yes.
Holy cow. Okay.
It's not exactly a tongue twister. Alrighty. So there's this feeling out there where we'll look at these really successful writers, and I think there's a tiny bit of every single one of us that's like, oh my gosh, I wish I was that lucky. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, they got a lucky break. Something magical happened, and now they're successful. Why can't I have that kind of luck? But all too often we forget that they had a really hard hill to climb too. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Like, nobody was successful overnight. There's very, very few cases where somebody does one book and it's their very first book and that book becomes a massive bestseller.
Yeah.
Like, the chances of that happening is like being hit by lightning. Can it happen? Yes. Do you want it to happen? Generally, it's a painful experience that nobody wants to repeat. Except for I wouldn't mind the money.
But you would mind the money.
I would mind the money very well. I would use it for good things.
Okay.
I didn't mean to twist that back on you. Sorry.
Yep. No, you did. That's fine.
Okay. I would love to start this conversation with talking about authors that we feel, quote unquote, got lucky.
Okay.
And the real story behind them.
Sure.
All right. So I don't think we can have this conversation without mentioning J.K. Rowling.
Okay.
It feels like she got lucky. It feels like she had this really cool idea, which it is a very cool idea. And she turned it into the publisher. And next thing you know, she is literally the wealthiest author on the planet.
That's true.
Ever.
Like, one of the wealthiest people. Yeah.
Yeah. So as of late, and I pulled this information yesterday, as of late 2023, she was the wealthiest author in the world with a net worth of over $1 billion. That is a lot of zeros.
I believe that.
But when she originally set out to publish, she got rejected by at least 12 publishers, although 2 places said it was 13. Lucky number 13.
There you go. We'll roll with that.
So this made me feel a lot better, or worse. The first 13 publishers said, your books are too long. Kids aren't interested in books that long. They're going to lose interest. Sorry. It's a wonderful idea. Click. We're not going to take it. And then the 13th one said, we like this. But it took her 5 years to write the first book. And everyone's like, oh, I'm not a good writer if I can't make these books, in 6 months or 3 months or, a reasonable time frame. It took her 5 years. And it took her almost a whole year-ish for like the first 3 chapters. But she was also doing this at the same time. She was enduring a toxic relationship. She was in relationship.
She's trying to get away.
And she's trying to get away from this guy. The death of her mother, and also raising her daughter alone in a small apartment. Like, she had a lot of this stuff going on. And she says the key moment for her that turned her story from interesting to powerful was the death of her mother, because it turned everything into overcoming adversity and overcoming death. And if you read the books really carefully, there's a lot of overcoming death.
Yeah.
Throughout. I mean, his parents, yes, were tragically murdered. So, there's this grain of her experience that makes this from an interesting book to a powerful book as well, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. And there you make a good point, because she always says that the characters will never come back. Because I thought for sure in almost every book that character would come back to life, and they never did.
No, and she did remove characters from the storyline that we really liked. And we're like, no, he can't be gone.
It's hard to forgive her for certain people.
Yes, but that's what made it powerful. But we always see her as lucky as, oh, she just put this book out, and then she got really popular all of a sudden, and then she put all these other books out, and now she's the wealthiest author. I can put out 7 books and become the wealthiest author. I'm like, can you? Mm-hmm. Can you? Did you have that experience? No. Did you? survive a toxic ex and the death of a loved one?
No.
I mean, maybe, but
I'd rather not.
pass.
I like
Hard
my
pass.
mommy. I want her to stay around. I'm going to pick a person named Rebecca Ethington. Now, this is from more of my personal experience with her, and I don't really want to go into all of her woes, but I will mention a few of them. So Rebecca Ethington is a internationally best-selling author. Seriously, she's done really amazing things. She's got like tons of books. And when I first met her, was just I think it was at Spring Into Book, and we shared a table, and that's where I met her. So she has tons and tons of books. Now, she started writing her first book, and she just decided, it was almost like a overnight decision. She's like, well, I'm just going to publish it. So she put it on as an ebook. Now, this is back when, like, I want to say Amazon wasn't smart. Like, they hadn't gotten all of the little nuances that they have now with KDP in being this self-published author. She could put it up there. It can gain a lot of numbers, and put up another one and it'll gain a lot of numbers and push all the books up like that. So her first book, she just put it up, and within a few months it had risen up the charts by doing absolutely nothing.
It's hard not to feel a little resentful.
Exactly. I love you, Beck. She knows this. But it was, those are the type of things that you always want to happen. Now, what wasn't, so she rose, she's done a lot of books. Her books cranked out. So she stayed up at the top of the list for a really long time. One of the things that you see this and you feel envious, but there was a very bitter separation from her husband and the rights to her name. So that was one of the things that you look at this, that was amazing that she gets all these, up to this high, making all this money and everything. But there's a cost to it. And it was her family, her relationship, and her name. And it took her years to solve that. And it was very, very difficult. And I always have to remind myself of how what kind of problems does that cause? Where do you want to just rise up to fame like that? What does that top look like? Those are the things that I worry about. And so that's my story of the person that I feel was lucky that actually wasn't, didn't turn out to be as lucky as, I think. Love you, Beck. She knows this.
Alrighty. So when it comes to your personal writing, what are things that you personally do that you feel helps increase your chances of quote unquote lucky success?
You answer this one first. Because this was difficult for me to think of.
All right.
So
for me, the more I show up to do the work, the luckier I get, because more work equals more product to share, or more people that I've met, or more opportunities that I've had to connect with readers. Like, I can't do any of that unless I'm willing to show up to do the work. And then it's going to be years down the line where it's like, oh yeah, I did this weird little short story and it went in this weird little publication in this weird little small press, and all of a sudden I got to know Candy. Like,
right?
That's luck.
That is luck.
But I had to show up and do the work first. I had to do the work still. If I just thought I would do short stories, I'm like, this is a cool idea, or I'll do it, but I'll put it in a drawer, and I didn't ever submit it, then we would not be having this conversation right now.
That is so true. Yep, that is lucky. Gosh, mine isn't even as cool as that. I think that I like happy accidents. Sounds weird. Happy accidents for me is when you're writing and unexpected things happen, and you continue writing to find out where this writing goes. Sometimes I think that we plot too much and we're writing too much to the specifics and not letting our brain activate and create these funny little happy accidents is what I can think of that can divert our story, but it can also enhance it because you're in the moment of creativity, and that creativity can be more igniting than what you were plotting out when you weren't being creative. So that's what I can think of when it comes to being lucky in your writing. Or with your writing. So anyway.
So you want to Bob Ross your writing? Happy little accidents.
Yes. Absolutely. They're amazing, right?
Sure.
And yeah, that tree wasn't supposed to be there, but let's just make it amazing.
And
Because
it's a
now
magical tree.
I can only think of this tree being amazing. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so tell me, so where you say 6 ways of luck.
So we each had to come up with 3 different things we feel that authors should do to increase their quote unquote luck.
Okay.
I'm not sure that's what you did, but that's what I did.
That is what I did.
Oh,
I
good.
did do that.
We both stayed on target.
Yeah. And we'll just try to put in an extra one. What do you think
We will
about
come
to
up
make
with
that
7 to make lucky number 7.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay,
This
you
is the
go.
thing.
Yes.
Oh, I know what number 7 is. I'm going to keep it hidden, but I know what number 7 is.
All right.
I just came up with it.
Okay.
All right. So the first one I came up with is that you need to be fearless and aggressive in solving the problems and challenges that get in your way of success. So, can't find time to write? That's a problem you need to solve if you want this to be something you do. So, brainstorm ways to find more time or use your time more efficiently. Or maybe your problem is that your story keeps getting stuck. Be fearless and aggressive in finding someone you can talk to figure out what the problem might be. Or research the problem. Or read something that might help unlock the story structure. Like, if you just sit back and wait for the solution to just magically descend on you like some mystical fairy dust. Mystical fairy dust. Yes. You might be stuck for months. You might be stuck for years. So be fearless and aggressive.
That's awesome. Okay. Mine, networking. Man, networking. That means that you need to be in places. You need to put yourself there. And I think as authors, specifically if you're a brand new author, you don't know how to do this. You have to find different conferences or cons or workshops, wherever you can network, where the people are that have done this, that can influence you into becoming that person that influences others. So but you have to be there and you have to be fearless. You have to, approach people, get into the right circles, talk to people. I think networking has been my biggest strength when it comes to where I've ended up in my writing, because some of these people have really opened up the possibilities of where my writing can go. And I don't think that without these specific influences, I definitely wouldn't have been here doing this podcast for sure. So yeah, definitely networking and being present, being there.
Absolutely. All right. My next one is take the advice of smart people.
See, and the same thing as networking. Go on.
Yes. And this is going to be my specific flavor of that. So if someone who has a lot of experience tells you need to do something, whether it be an editor, whether it be find an editor or just part of your story, take that advice seriously. If that person has more experience than you and they're in your genre and they're very familiar with that kind of story needs to be like, and they have advice for you, take it seriously. At least really think about if you should use it or not. Because nothing is worse than watching an author self-sabotage their career because they thought they knew better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And we've all met these people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's tragic and sad and disheartening for them to be like, why am I not having X amount of success? I'm doing Y amount of work. And I'm like, because you're missing secret ingredient Q that we've told you 13 different times now, and you just won't do it. Mm-hmm. And no, there isn't a magic bullet that's going to make you successful, but there's lots of microdosing that can definitely help.
Yes. I love that.
That's the worst metaphor ever, by the way.
Microdosing. Microdosing that luck. Okay. Mine is be kind to other authors and not being this selfish diva. Don't be the desperate author either who is seeking that validation by selling a book. Because going back to the authors, sometimes there is, when it comes down to, there's a row of authors, but there is only one person that is going to buy a book. And are you going to be that person that they're going to buy the book from? And so it can get a little bit competitive at that time. But I think as an author, I look at it as you got to be kind to other authors, because we all know how hard it is. And that's how you build friendships and relationships too, that you can build on. And enjoy their successes as well. Celebrate those successes, not just yours, but theirs. For me, it's never about you. It's always about the reader.
Oh, absolutely.
So even when we do cons, like we've done cons together, it doesn't matter if they buy my book. It's what they want to read. So if they buy your book instead, that's okay, because that is their magic. They just received their magic. That's going to communicate to their soul. And that's what's important for me. I did want to just bring up, I said this before. So Rebecca Ethington, I met at Spring Into Books. We shared a table. And that's the first thing I asked her was like, tell me how to sell your books. And she was stunned by that because she's been to other conferences in other states where nobody asked that. Nobody wants to sell. You're selling your book and that's it. You don't touch anyone else's because that isn't, you don't want them to succeed. You want to succeed. You're not a success if you're not doing it. So that opened up a whole world to her and me working together on projects just by me asking, how do I sell your books? Who is your audience versus who is my audience? I know my audience, but I want to know her audience because that might be where the reader needs to be. So be kind, everyone. Authors are your friends. There you go.
We're normal people. Most of us are pretty normal people.
Sort
Normal
of.
is not the right word. We're very kind people. Most of the authors I know are really cool.
Yes, but there's a culture we have created here within our community that celebrates other authors' successes. I think it's unusual to find this in other places where so many authors are celebrating so many other people and so many other authors. That's just our culture. It's our petri dish. We're surrounded by these mountains and we're just this little petri dish that is creating all this nerdness. And yeah, there you go.
All right. I dare you to keep going with that.
Authors are bacteria. So, there you go.
I've already been called one bad
We cultivate a very good culture of kindness there. That was alliterative.
Oh, my favorite science nerd. All right, my next one is harping off of the thing that personally helps me keep going is do the work. Just do the work. It's not enough to talk about wanting to do it or spending months thinking about wanting to do it. You're not going to find any success unless you put your behind in the chair and write your story.
Yep.
Do the work.
Do it. Yes, there's a difference between me and an unpublished author, and it's just because I did it.
Yeah,
anyone can do it.
A lot longer.
If I can do it, really anyone can do it, right? Mine, I say try, fail, experiment, and share. So that seems like 4, but it's actually just the one thing. I want you to try stuff and fail at it because you learn a lot from the failures and understanding where the successes are. And I find that if you share those with others, they also learn from those in their own experimenting when it comes to how to be successful. You know, I always say that you already know the answer if you don't try. So
yeah, and that answer is no.
Well, it's just nothing. If you don't try, you know the answer. So if you don't audition for the part, you know you're not going to get the part because you didn't audition for it.
Yeah.
So you already know the answer if you don't try, but you never know what the answer will be if you do. So it's always worth trying.
Oh, so sweet.
Tear.
I have my magic number 7.
Oh, okay.
I do.
I'm ready.
You're going to love it.
Oh,
it is amazing.
I'm prepared.
So the official Squirrel Podcast number 7, lucky thing you can do to be a successful writer is listen to the Squirrel Podcast.
Oh my gosh.
It's perfect.
Is that perfect?
I like it.
Okay, I actually adore that.
We can expand this.
Sure.
Keep learning.
No, I want to go back to the podcast.
Okay. Keep listening to our podcast.
Well,
and keep learning.
But here's the deal. Let's talk about the podcast just quickly. This was a very lucky situation that came when a friend of mine wanted to just experiment with his new studio. That's really what this was about.
Pretty much.
But I had been thinking about a podcast for, I want to say, a couple of years. It was introduced when I built the studio that we're currently recording in. And I knew exactly the person that I wanted to pick, to ask if you wanted to be in this podcast with me.
Because our goofiness lines up.
It does. It sure does. But I needed the thinking brain also to be in part of this podcast.
There's that.
So I think that, yes, it is a very lucky thing that we can do this because the situation just kind of
way we met was just a series of unlikely events.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. So that was, I put that in my
It
encouraging
is. It's in your
thoughts.
final thought there. So I wasn't
Yeah.
going to steal it from you.
Yeah, don't steal it. But go ahead.
Okay. But my final thought,
Yes.
I mean, besides listen to our podcast,
Yeah.
because
Dude,
that's an
'cause
awesome
we're-
way to be more lucky.
Very funny.
You never know what thing you do now will end up changing everything for you in the future. So do as much as you can now and plant lots of seeds. So in the future, you can thank yourself for being brave and reap the fruit.
That's beautiful.
I know.
love that. Very
and it's a
good.
metaphor that kind of makes sense.
No, it's really, it totally makes sense to me.
Better than Petri dish.
Yeah, it's very much better than the Petri dish. I think it's hard to see the luck when you are in the moment. In the same threads that you were saying. So it's not until later do you realize how lucky you are. I think it was extremely lucky that Jodi happened to submit a story to my first publisher. That is very true. And I was not in the
Anthology.
I wasn't in the anthology.
You weren't.
You just stopped by and said, I'm part of this. And I loved the cover and I was envious of the cover.
It was my very first signing ever.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I'm like, I'm a published author now. I have a tiny sliver of this random book.
Oh, but that's so exciting. So yeah, I find that super lucky. And I also think that it was very lucky for me to be a part of this huge author booth that we had in 2014. I was with 13 other authors. I met my soul sisters there. I really met the best people that would help encourage my writing at that moment. And I didn't know what I was meeting at the time. So I feel extremely fortunate. And I was present. I was there. I was experimenting, doing all these things that we talked about. So I feel very lucky that I get to do something that I love and something that I dreamed about doing when I was younger. My 14-year-old self would be so proud.
Oh, good job.
So very good. The end.
That's the end of our story.
No, that's awesome. This was fun.
I like this one.
This
was
made
fun.
me feel good.
Well, huge thanks for everyone for listening. Be sure to join us next week. We're going to talk about adding a friend familiar to your story. We're going to talk pets.
We are going to talk animals. We're getting to spring and it's lovely.
It's baby animal season.
And I'm so excited. I love spring so much. I love the flowers and the blossoms and all of that. So, and it makes me feel good. So we're going to talk little baby animals and all the other things that help when you have that in your story. So
all right. And don't forget, we do have a Patreon. We also have a Buy Us a Coffee. If we've said anything that's resonated with you today, a little tip in the tip jar makes us very happy. Be sure to like and subscribe. And this has been terrific. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you, Jodi. Thank you for listening to the Squirrel Podcast for the Distracted Writer with Candace J. Thomas and Jodi L. Milner. Please like and subscribe to our podcast for updates and new episodes, and find more information at our website, squirrelpodcast.com. Stay distracted, everyone. At Spring Into Books, it's just like this dinky.
I was in charge of that.
But not this time.
Oh, that was before my year.
This is before, yeah. No, this is before then. So anyway.
Don't call my event dinky.
It is dinky.
Okay, it was dinky.